Good Monday morning, my friends in Noblesville. Mayor Chris Jenson here on another edition of Mental Health Monday. It is Monday, August 17th, and we're so glad that you are joining us here this morning. I am joined once again by my great friend, someone who has given so much time to this community, owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling Services here in Noblesville, Kristen Boice. Kristen, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Jenson. It's good to see you this morning.
Great to see you as always. We were just chatting about our weekend, and it's nice to just catch up and recharge. And let's start the Monday off right with some conversations about mental health. There's a lot going on, Kristen. Kudos to so many people. We've gotten through a couple of weeks now of Noblesville schools. I know Sheridan went back this morning. I think they were the last Hamilton County schools. I know our friends in Fishers and HSE are doing virtual school right now. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. Kristen, I was thinking this morning that there is a population of Noblesville residents that go to HSE. So I want to make sure we touch on, and they're doing virtual right now. So I want to make sure that we touch on that here a little bit later today. So we have a lot to talk about here on a beautiful Monday in the city of Noblesville. So to kick us off, though, Kristen, I'm going to have you lead us through a little exercise to get us centered before we start our conversation.
Okay, everybody. I think we all need to take a couple of breaths to nurture ourselves, to center ourselves, to really self-care, to take care of ourselves at this point. There's a lot going on in the midst of this pandemic, a lot of emotions and uncertainty, and that makes sense that we're all having many different feelings: grief, loss, fear, some joy in there sprinkled throughout, hopefully for some. So let's take a moment, put our feet on the floor. We're going to do our square breathing together. You can do this anytime, any place, anywhere to help you bring you back to center, calm your nervous system, and be able to handle what comes your way. So feet on the floor. We're going to inhale through our nose for 4. We're going to hold for 4, and then exhale slowly out our mouth like you're cooling soup, or for those kiddos, cooling a cookie. And what this does is it helps calm our nervous system down. So you can go at your own pace. If the counting doesn't work for you, that's okay. Just go at the pace that works for you. So feet on the floor, we're going to do this together. Inhale through your nose. Hold. Exhale slowly out your mouth. You'll notice my shoulders are dropping because I'm releasing all the tension and tightness in my nervous system and my body. And so that's when you know you're getting the full benefit of that breath, is when you can feel your body kind of let go. So let's do another one together. Inhale. You can just kind of feel that all being released out your nervous system. So you can do this anytime, any place. I recommend doing it every hour until you get the muscle memory of really you're doing it more often.
And Kristen, obviously I've spent the past probably 6+ months really focused on square breathing. I've got to say, breathing is something that we do obviously just without thinking about it. But I think this type of breathing, this deep breath, really impacts me personally. So throughout the day, I try to sprinkle that in. So I know it sounds silly. Of course, we're going to breathe, we're alive, but really consciously taking a deep breath, I think is so important. So thank you for leading us through that. So I want to mention we have quite a few people watching live here today. If you're watching live and want to say hi, let us know that you're watching. Obviously, if you have any questions today, we're here to answer any of those questions for you too. If we don't know the answer, we can do some research and get back to you on that. But this is really a time for you to take for yourself, to say hi and offload any thoughts that you have. So I know Kathy Hines, one of my favorite people, is watching. She always says good morning. So Kathy, kudos to you. You're the first one. So Kristen, we've talked a lot lately about school and kids going back to school. That is all the rage right now, all the conversation. We've had school districts all over Hamilton County that are seeing positive cases, which we know is going to happen. So there's a lot of chatter about that. Before we get to that, though, I want to pivot for just a second. Something I thought about this morning, actually, my mother and I were talking about last night, which I know my mom Elaine's watching too. Tonight is the start of the Democrat National Convention. It reminded me of all the politics that we're going to see over these next several months. We've seen a lot this year, and I fear that we're just going to see a lot more as we head to November. So in honor of that, though, I want to talk a little bit about disagreement and obviously how do we how do we navigate that conflict that's naturally going to happen because society is going to press us on that over the next several months? We see it particularly online. There's a lot of hate on both sides of the aisle or center of the road or wherever you fall. So Kristen, could you maybe chat a little bit about how we handle some of those interpersonal conversations with friends, neighbors who may disagree with us politically? How do we maybe drown out some of that noise and the atmosphere that's bound to surround us over these next several months in the heat of a presidential election?
Yes. First of all, let's acknowledge that everyone's tired. They're tired of COVID. They're tired of the politics. They're tired of the divisiveness. And so when we can go, oh yeah, me too, that is a commonality that we can all come together for the most part. It doesn't mean everybody. For the most part, people are feeling very fatigued with everything. It's like COVID exhaustion, political exhaustion. And so we want to recognize our own internal experience when someone has a different opinion. So the first thing I encourage people with, and this takes a lot of self-work, is to regulate yourself. So it's called take a deep breath. So you can feel it in your nervous system when someone starts getting heightened and they're like, ta, 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 on social media. And I'm like, okay, all right, take a deep breath. Because there's a fear that's driving so many people right now. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of fear out there, and things feel so out of control. Well, control is really an illusion anyways, but in general, people are feeling very out of control. And so they feel like they want their voice to be heard, which makes sense. And that does go back to a lot of our childhoods, not feeling heard, not feeling acknowledged. And so the first thing is to regulate yourself. So sometimes people get very dysregulated and they're name calling and they're getting very heated and intense. And that doesn't help the situation. So first of all, it's self-regulation. I have to take responsibility for my own thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And then I have to own the energy I'm bringing into a space. So that's first. Second of all is if we can come through self-regulation, we can listen. It doesn't mean we're going to agree. And a lot of times we don't agree. And so if I can listen without judgment, this is very hard to do, by the way, then I can try to hear where someone's coming from, because typically there's some deep stuff going on for most people right now. There's a lot going on, and it doesn't mean I need to get into a heated debate. Here's the other thing. Most people, there's statistics right now saying, I think it was 17% of the people feel comfortable talking about politics. So it's a very low percentage. Most people don't want to talk about politics, or if they do, they really want to change someone else's mind. Here's the bottom line. We're probably not going to change anybody's mind. We're not. So if we engage in a conversation, the chances of me changing someone's mind are very slim to none. They've already made up their mind. They're passionate because they've already made up their mind, and they want to persuade other people to have the same opinion. And so when we can go, you know what, I'm probably not going to change anybody's mind. You can totally say how you feel. It's the way you're going about it. So what I'm seeing right now is a lot of hostility, a lot of anger, but underneath it is a lot of fear. And so when I can help people, one, take responsibility for your own actions and your own whatever you're saying to someone else, that can cause a lot of pain. And I've seen a lot of broken relationships over COVID and politics and so many things. And it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking, because I don't think that's really what people want. They don't want broken relationships. They want connection. They want attunement. They want understanding. They want to feel heard. They want to feel understood. And the way we're all defended right now, because we're kind of sick of it and we're tired of it, or we want to be heard, isn't the approach. So the more regulated we are, the more centered we are, the chances of us being heard are a little bit better than if I'm dysregulated and coming at it from an aggressive perspective.
One of the things that I found lately is that sometimes people just want to share their thoughts with you. They're not looking for necessarily your opinion or justification. Just this Friday, all full disclosure, Julie Jenson, my wonderful wife, is a teacher. And so she was talking about some frustrations that teachers have today, as you can imagine, in the classroom working with masks. And she's teaching in online kindergarten now, which is a whole new experience for her. And so she was sharing some frustrations, Kristen. I found myself trying to justify and not battle back by any means, but just simply answer, or have you thought of this, or why not this, and I quickly realized that I don't think she's looking for me to necessarily answer or defend. I think she's just looking to me to listen.
Period.
Bam.
We do not heal or feel, our nervous system won't go until we feel heard. The number one thing I work with people, I actually just did it this morning, is teach people how to listen. And that's mirror back what you hear someone say. Or just, you could simply go, thank you for sharing that. That's all you have to say. And so, or empathy, oh, that makes sense. You feel overwhelmed by that. I can imagine that's a lot to manage and a lot to take on a kindergarten class. I can only imagine. So that's a very empathic way to approach it. And I love how you said, so many people want to fix it or tell the person why they're wrong or why that's incorrect, or and I'm like, you're wasting your energy. If you can go, oh, thank you for sharing that. I hear you. I hear that that's really hard. Man, it would be a different world we live in. It literally would be a different world we live in. So I love how you said that.
I'm sure a lot of husband and wives
try to fix it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure a lot of husband and wife combinations can relate to that these last several months, and can relate to it to going forward as well. So I do. Thanks, Kristen, for touching on the political thing. I think we'll come probably back to that several times over the next several months, because it's going to get more heated, and people's opinions are strong. I've said I've never thought a mask could be such a divisive conversation as well. So we'll come back to that. But I want to talk a little bit here for the remainder of this morning, a little bit about school and anxieties that come around that. Like I mentioned at the outset of the show, Noblesville's back in school for the last couple of weeks. You have some families that have opted to go to an e-learning module. Kudos to you. You have some families that have opted to go in person. Kudos to you. You have some families I know in our neighborhood that opted to homeschool. Kudos to you. I know that our friends at HSE are all virtual right now. So let's talk a little bit, first of all, as parents or as grandparents. Now, there's a lot of grandparents that I'm talking about, the group that wants to fix things. Grandparents love them, but they want to get in there and fix this. Let's talk about how we deal with our anxieties prior to dealing with our kids' anxieties.
So one of the critical pieces is to own your anxiety. So if you have fear, which everybody does, okay, let's be honest, we all have fears. And when we can acknowledge those, that is the number one thing I teach parents and grandparents and just people in general, is to take responsibility for that fear, breathe through it, nurture yourself through it, take what boundaries you need to have. So for example, masks, that's really important for some people to reduce their anxiety. That makes perfect sense. And so if someone isn't wearing a mask, to your point, that can produce fear. So the person could get afraid then that they might get sick or their kid might get sick. So the first thing is to take a deep breath. What can I do and what can't I do? What am I responsible for? What am I not responsible for? And then really nurturing yourself through that, through the breath. And then secondly is, if you're not regulated, guess what's going to transfer to our kids? That is going to transfer to our kids. So it's really important that we're taking time to nurture ourselves through it, to acknowledge that this is an anxiety producing time. And we're getting so many mixed messages. And so people get really confused. They don't know what to do. They're like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. And the first thing I say is, that makes sense. Just take a deep breath. We might not have all the answers. Take a deep breath. Okay, what can you do? And then we kind of deconstruct what we can do. For our children, the main thing I'm working with parents on is acknowledging their kids' fears, acknowledging their kids' feelings, instead of trying to fix it first. And I know I've talked a lot about this to the point before, is if we jump in and we're like, try to rescue them and bypass their emotions, their anxiety is going to skyrocket. So it doesn't fix it. It makes it worse. It grows it. So the first thing I tell people is, don't offer solutions first. Offer empathy. Listen, mirror back what you hear. So this is what I teach couples all the time. So if someone says, I'm afraid because I don't want to get sick. And I say, oh, that makes sense. You feel afraid because you don't want to get sick. And they're like, no, I don't want to. I go, oh, that makes so much sense. Is there more? And they're like, yeah. So if my kid says I'm afraid because so-and-so, did this or that, I'm just going to mirror that back and acknowledge, yeah, that sounds like that probably was scary for you. Yeah, da da da. The more they talk, the more they're processing. The more they connect emotionally and they're vulnerable, the more they're going to heal it. So that leads to us not being traumatized. This is what we didn't learn as kids. So if we're not allowed to have the grief, if we're not allowed to feel the feelings, if we're not allowed to cry and let it out, that turns into trauma. If we're allowed to process it in real time, we can move through it and get to the other side. And our nervous system cannot hold on to all of that because we feel seen, heard, safe, and acknowledged. We didn't get that. We didn't know about neuroscience growing up. Now we do. So that is the most important piece that I can teach parents, educators, grandparents. It doesn't matter. It's something I have to practice also in my own life, especially when I don't agree with somebody. Even if it's your kid, because you're like, you do have friends. And they're like, I don't have any friends. And you want to go, well, you have Susie and Joey, and you want to, no, you that's trying to fix it, to tell them, no, that's not true. And maybe it's not true. They need to know that it's okay for them to have their feelings and process through it. And once they do, then they get to the other side and they're like, yeah, Joey's my friend. And after they've processed through their feelings, the sadness, the grief. So I'm teaching something counterintuitive to let people process their emotions, and then they can get to the other side. We're all stuck in kind of a cognitive looping, what I call we're looping over the same thing because we're not feeling the feelings. That's why you keep looping over and over and over. And when I go, what are you feeling? You're like, I'm afraid. I feel sad. I miss how it used to be. I miss being able just to go out and be with my friends. And I miss being able to go out, whatever. We all miss stuff. And I'm like, of course you do. That makes so much sense. Now my nervous system can go, okay, I'm not holding on to it in my body. So that's the most important thing when it comes to our children and fear in each other. Let people express their emotions. Don't take it on and feel responsible for them. That's what people do. They feel responsible for other people's feelings. I'm like, those are their feelings. It's okay for them to have it. You don't have to fix, rescue, or save them. As a matter of fact, you can't. You can acknowledge them. That's the key.
Yep. I think it's great. Even this weekend, we had a little bit of a heated moment in our house where I was trying to fix something. And my wife finally said, I just need you to walk away. Give me a few minutes. And again, trying to go right at somebody to instant gratification is never going to work. Just give a little space. Let folks work through those emotions. I think that's key. Let's talk a little bit about that, since we are in kind of a heated conversation right now when it comes to education. Couples, at home, it can be a very tense time right now. There's disagreements amongst strategies for schooling. There's disagreements amongst mask wearing and you name it. There's disagreements about what you have for dinner, right? So let's talk a little bit about couples and some advice to kind of help them work through this time so we can focus a lot on our kids, because we need to right now.
First thing I want to encourage people are, what are your blocks to listening to somebody else? And so some people say, I don't agree with them. So I don't, I want to get my thing out and say how I feel, because I don't agree. I feel like it's incorrect what they're saying. I feel like they don't even know what they're talking about. I feel like it's wrong what they're saying. I feel like they aren't making sense to me. I don't understand what they're saying. And I say the first skill that I teach is called mirroring, which you mirror back what someone said. So just like I kind of said it a few minutes ago, it's one of the most critical skills I can teach, because what that does is it calms our nervous system down to go, okay, they get what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you agree with what they're saying. So I'm teaching couples, what are your barriers? What are your blocks to really listening to somebody else? Oftentimes it's fear. It's inner child stuff. So if we didn't feel heard as a kid, or we felt bullied as a kid, or we felt controlled as a kid, or we didn't have a voice, then we kind of come with this need to be heard. We all want to be heard, by the way, but this need to really be understood. And so it could be hard to listen because we feel like, well, I'm never heard. I'm never understood. So the first thing I do is kind of go, is that your inner child talking, or is that your adult self talking? Mirror back what you heard the person say. So what I heard you say is you feel sad because you're afraid to get sick. And then the person says, yes. And then they say something else. And I say, just keep acknowledging. And couples have such a hard time doing this, including myself. So I am not the exception to the rule here. If I don't agree, it's hard because I want to poke holes in what they're saying. I want to defend. I want to say what's wrong with it and why are they thinking that? And oh my gosh. And I have to take a deep breath, regulate myself so I can really listen to what the other person is saying. This is critical as we go forward because we cannot be present in school, whether it's a relationship or kids. They cannot learn if they're dysregulated on the inside. They cannot learn if they feel scared on the inside. They cannot learn if they don't feel heard or understood. There is no learning that goes on. So this is step one, and same with couples. It's hard to self-regulate when we aren't feeling understood. And so the mirroring helps our nervous system go, okay, they get what I'm saying. I feel heard and understood. And it doesn't mean we agree. And then I can offer some empathy. And then we can get into how can we work through options? What are possibilities to problem solve this? We usually get the cart before the horse and it doesn't work. So couples get in a dance and they don't resolve anything because that's what they learned in their childhoods. This is how we learn to do conflict. We're repeating cycle after cycle after cycle. And if you can do this one step, and it's super hard to do, I'm like, mirror people in the grocery store, mirror your children, mirror your neighbors, mirror your parents. I don't care. Practice this skill. And it's harder than you'll ever dream it is. It's harder, even I'm a therapist, it's hard for me to do it. So that's number one when it comes to couples. And it's a skill I have to work on. So they'll come back into couples therapy. How did it go? Well, we didn't really do it. I'm like, okay. So that's okay. Let's get to the bottom. And it's because
what I hear you saying is you didn't do it. Okay.
Exactly. Because of the blocks, because of our own blocks.
Yeah.
And it takes practice, like the breathing does. Breathe, mirror, core skills, core foundations. Then our kids can learn better. Then they're taking in what the teachers are saying. Then I'm connecting with my spouse better. I'm connecting with my friends. If the whole world did this, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it'd be a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Well, I think we should challenge everyone watching today. If you can mirror at some point in time this week, again, to your point, someone in the grocery store, a neighbor, it doesn't have to be some heated conversation where you agree, you mirror your neighbor as he's mad about your dog pooping in their yard or something. Just mirror somebody in a positive way and practice that. So we'll give a little task out here today and go from there. So I want to end on a topic that we touched on months ago, Kristen, with virtual learning. It was brought to my attention this morning. Backyard neighbor, a good friend of mine who I graduated with, her sister lives in HSE. Both parents are trying to work. They have a kindergartner, I believe, or first grader that's doing all virtual right now. Back in the spring, Noblesville was all virtual. We talked a lot about great tips for e-learning, things to do with your kids at home to help them get through that. I thought it might be a good idea to quickly just refresh that because I know there are a lot of parents now that are opting to do that. And again, some other school districts, that's where they're at right now. So I want to make sure we're covering all of our bases. So let's get back and give some tips, if you wouldn't mind, on e-learning and making that most successful for your children at home.
Absolutely. First, environment. So do you have an environment set up with few distractions? Do you have a desk with their iPad or whatever they're using for learning set up? Do you have the space where they have a say-so and how that looks? Is the chair comfortable? Are there fidget things that you need next to you? So this is like pinch me dough. And this is it's kind of like Play-Doh. So do they have something that they can fiddle with? Because guess what? Their brains learn better, believe it or not, when they're fiddling with something. So do they have something they might be able to fiddle with? Do they have all the necessary supplies that they need to be able to focus? So it might be, the environment is critical. So when I say it might be that you need to alter the environment. So if you have two kids right next to each other, that might not work. So you might need to separate them into two different rooms. And the second thing is structure. So as you look, and obviously the grade matters, but I recommend parents talk about the week ahead. So on Sunday, you're going to sit down, talk about what you have coming up. What are the classes? What does that look like? Is there anything you need from us? How are we doing? We're kind of checking in. And so there's some structure. So once you get your homework done, once you check in, do all your classes, then you can do iPad time, you can watch something, you can whatever. So you're very clear on the I call them bumpers. It's like, think of bowling. We have the bumpers. Like, what are the bumpers for the week? What are the boundaries? So the boundaries are, we do our schoolwork first, take breaks as needed. Please take breaks as needed. Kids their attention span isn't great all the time, which is totally understandable. That's how they're wired. They need to move. So get up, do some jumping jacks, run around the house, run up and down the stairs, do something to get the energy out. Take breaks. Snacks. They need fuel. Are they drinking enough? Or do they have enough snacks? Are you regulated? Do you need a break? Yes, you're going to need a break. You might be losing your mind. So you're going to need to take your breaths. You're going to need to take a break, and that's okay. So it's really important you're checking in emotionally as well, because kids learn best when their nervous system is regulated. They will not learn anything if there's a high level of conflict. The learning is going to go out the window. And we all know we're going to have moments of that. So it's everybody takes a break. Everybody takes a deep breath. And if they don't breathe, if they're not breathing, you're breathing as the parent. You're breathing. If nothing else, I can teach you it's breathing. So you might not say a word until you're regulated. So those are the key pointers that I have to get through this time, and a support system. You need a support system. So other people that are doing virtual learning, all of us are doing virtual learning on some level. Check in and go, oh my gosh, I'm about ready to lose my marbles. And the other person's like, me too. I'm about ready to lose my mind. Please take the time to talk to each other, vent. It's okay. And acknowledge each other and go, yeah, this is super hard. Take breaks for yourself. Parents need breaks. If you can get, and I know not everyone can, if you can, take a break, nurture yourself, do something for yourself, go for a walk, take everybody on a walk. Take the dog on a walk, whatever you need to do. Support systems are really helpful in self-care.
Well, I felt like it was something that we had talked about so much in the spring that we needed to revisit, because I know we have so many parents and so many grandparents. A good friend of mine, Kay Evans, actually mentioned she's doing e-learning with her grandkids. I mean, it's an all hands on deck with e-learning. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, and all those awesome people who are doing it, going forward. Like I said, Julie Jenson's doing online kindergarten. And I can tell you, behind every kindergartner or beside every kindergartner is a parent or guardian helping them do that, because it's just a huge undertaking. So great tips that I didn't want us to lose sight on going forward. So to close this out, Kristen, if somebody's at their wit's end, needs help right now, doesn't know where to go, is losing their mind, whatever it may be, filled with anxiety, filled with hope, suffering from addiction issues, whatever it may be, where can they turn to right now?
First of all, please reach out for help. There is help available. You don't have to walk this alone. The first recommendation I have is Prevail. If you're in a domestic violence situation, emotional abuse, please, they have programs in place. Call them. Their number is 317-776-3472. They're here in Hamilton County, and they can help you, walk you through the process. Suicide Prevention Hotline. This is a national hotline. They're trained in this. They do this 24 hours a day. If you have any suicidal ideation, please, this is what they do. Call them, 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. If you don't want to talk, that's okay too. You can text. And so I want you to text 741-741 and just type connect in the text. There's a 24/7 that basically hotline to help people be able to work through crises. And then we also have Community North here locally, St. Vincent's and Fairbanks, if anyone's struggling with addiction. We also have the Disaster Distress Helpline at 1-800-985-5990. It's not okay to be mistreated. It's not okay to be to treat other people however we want. It takes a high level of responsibility to take care of yourself. And please know that there are support systems out there for you. You can do this. We are here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Kristen. Thanks, everyone. There were a lot of people who said hi, from Lavella, Amber, Brian, Janet, Jessica, Gail, Kathy, like I mentioned, thank you guys for saying hi and joining us today. I know there are hundreds of others that will watch this over the course of this week too. So thank you, Kristen, for your time. Noblesville and any community far and wide, anybody watching, you are worth it. Take a deep breath, enjoy a beautiful summer day out there, and join us back here in 2 weeks for another edition of Mental Health Monday. But Kristen, in the meantime, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I just so enjoy being here with you and hope it's helpful to everybody tuning in.
I know it is. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great week.